Hello and welcome to Pi English Podcast. This is our first podcast, and in this podcast, we are going to cover a interesting topic that will help you to understand the impact of heat wave and animal lives. So, our topic that we are going to discuss, I give it a title, and the title is Sky Puppies in a Burning Sky. So, today we are talking about something that's unfolding right now in Australia, something both heartbreaking and quietly alarming. A brutal heat wave has swept across parts of the country, Australia, and with it, thousands of animals have died. Among the hardest hit are flying foxes, Australia's native fruit bats, including newborn pups that never had a chance to escape the heat. This is not just a wildlife story, it's a climate story. It's a land use story, and it's a story about how close we are to the edge of what nature can tolerate. So keep in mind, heatwave animal lives. So comment and tell me the situation you have in your country related to heatwave, climate change. How is it impacting your lives, your day-to-day work, your culture, your tradition, your vacation? So, hope to see most of the comments with a clear picture so I can predict what's happening in the part of the world, right? Back to our story. So, what actually happened? Over the last few weeks, temperatures in parts of Australia push beyond 42 degrees Celsius for days in a row. During that time, wildlife rescuers begin finding flying fox colonies collapsing. So, a lot more newborn pups were dying. Adults falling from trees, pups still clinging to their mothers, entire roost silent. This has been described as the worst mass death event for flying foxes since the Black Summer bushfires. Thousands are believed to have died in a matter of days. For animals that already live close to their physical limits, extreme heat is not just comfortable, it's fatal. So you can imagine a bat, mother bat, on a tree with many more children, and she trying to protect from the burning sun. Okay, like the heat wave. It's severe. It's not normal even for human. We can sweat, we can do, but bats have different mechanism, different energy, different things, how they operate in their body. So this was a devastating event. Now learn what heat really does. That's the important part. Flying foxes cannot sweat like humans. When temperatures climb too high, they fan their wings, pant, and search for shade. But during a heat wave, shades become scarce, limited, and air itself feel heavy. Above a certain temperature, their bodies simply cannot cool down. Now imagine carrying a pup. Imagine trying to regulate your own body heat while keeping another life alive. You can't imagine, or if you can imagine, you can understand how impactful that can be. Mother is trying to survive itself, and she also trying to fan their wings and provide a shade to the newborn pups, right? And she is not under any shade, so she is the direct in the direct contact of heat or the scorching sun, so it's not easy for her to survive. How can she secure the lives of their newborn pups? Heat waves don't just kill directly, they dry out food sources. Trees stop flowering, water disappears. Even survivors face starvation days later. So, you can imagine, after the heat wave, their food will be limited. They cannot easily find the food, like the flowers, the fruit that they eat, because that level of heat wave not only damage their bodies, but they also impact their daily habitat, their living condition, their water resources, their food. This is why heat events ripple through ecosystems long after the temperature drops. So even the temperature will be drop, but their impact on the ecosystem is a ripple through, like impacting a longer time. Now, maybe the question come to your mind, like who flying foxes are, right? Maybe you are curious, want to know more about. So, flying foxes are large fruit bats with wingspan that can reach over a meter. Like, right? Okay. Hopefully you can imagine what they are, how they can stretch their wings. They have sharp eyesight, fox-like faces, and a surprisingly gentle presence. Some people don't get scared, they keep them attached. You will find uh, in Australia, but some definitely scare with them. They need food. They feed on fruit and nectar. They fly long distances every night, sometimes tens of kilometers, linking forests that would otherwise be isolated. They are not pest by nature, they are connector. And many people only notice them when something goes wrong. So, if you ever visit Australia, you need to keep quiet in a certain locations, like when you are visiting a golf club. It's be helpful because they just don't produce much sound because the flying bats will be sleeping, and you need to be cautious about that, right? Because they are a, a animal that can be helpful. Now, the next question I hope you are thinking about: why flying foxes matter. Flying foxes are Austral are Australia's most important pollinators and seed dispersers. You know, the pollination, the process of growing food, right? Through, and they are also the seed disperser. Many native trees depend on them, especially those that flower at night. Now, can you name some of those that flower at night? Okay, answer me in the comment. Which, what do you think? I'm gonna name one or two: moonflowers, blooming, night blooming jasmine. Okay, if you know any others, comment out and I will see the new names that will enable us to learn more. Okay, so why flying foxes matters? So we learn they are important for pollinators and seed dispersers. Without flying foxes, forest regeneration slow. Okay, so the growing forest or their regeneration will be slow. Tree diversity declines. So different kind of tree you will no longer see that many more options, you will be limited. Other species lose habitat because they are seed disperser and pollinator. They help a forest recover after fires. That's the one of the biggest advantage. They help landscapes stay resilient in drought. Flying foxes disappear, or when they disappear, ecosystems do not collapse overnight. They thin, they weaken, they unravel quietly. So they diminish gradually after that. So the flying foxes lives matter for the ecosystem. And once that unraveling starts, it's hard to reverse. You can't imagine how devastating it can be if you are not going to protect the flying foxes. They we wake up in the morning, but they wake up at night and do their work. We learn they can travel several kilometers in the night because they can easily see in the night. It's just opposite of human. We have we face difficulty while saving in the night, and they can easily see things. So you can see the diversity, or imagine the diversity of our world where we exist. But they have their importance, like we discussed: forest regeneration, trees diversity decline, other species lost habitat. So the important part, once that unraveling starts, is hard to reverse. Australia's landscape and human pressure. Australia often looks empty on a map, but most people live along the coast. Cities expand outward, farms push into former forest. Open land does not always mean healthy land. Okay, clearing, remove roasting trees first, shade disappears, wildlife corridor break apart, flying foxes are pushed closer to town, not because they want to be there, but because there's nowhere else to go. So you can imagine the condition of these, why they are turning towards the town or cities, because shades have disappeared. You will see a, a huge land without trees, a barren land. So roasting trees, because they have a corridor which we call wildlife corridor that's break apart. There is no jungle like they are usually or mostly the part of the jungle, but there is not such kind of area up in vast majority. So it's hard for flying foxes to stay alive in that situation, and you will find many trees most around the coastal areas. So that's why they move towards the town. So this sort of conflict grows when habitat shrink. Love and friction. This is where the relationship turns complicated. Flying foxes can be loud. They roast in large numbers. Their presence can frustrate residents and farmers. Fear and misinformation add fuel to that frustration. But fear often replaces understanding. The risk of disease transmission is low. The ecological value is high. The challenge is coexistence, not removal. That's the key that most of the people need to understand. The people start thinking, hey, we can get disease if we live too close to this sort of bad. But scientifically, it's not the case. The risk of disease transmission is low. And by living in the nature, where the trees, pollination, diversity, the ecological value is high. And as we said earlier, the presence can frustrate residents and farmers. Why not? Because they think they can cause trouble. But eventually they stick to their areas and they move at the night. So few like misinformation, they are not harmful, there are less chances of spreading any disease or very low chances. So we need to educate people like this is a balance of ecosystem. We need to live together. Okay, so we need to eradicate those misinformation that fuel that frustration among the residents and farmers. So how we respond says a lot about what kind of future we want. That's a question for you. the pups and the people who saved them. So there are many more people who try to save them. They are rescuers. In the middle of all this are the rescuers, volunteering, waking down or waking before dawn, carrying dehydrated pups, feeding them around the clock, hoping enough survive to return to the wild. So each rescue pup represents effort, time, and emotional weight. It also represents a system under strain. Wildlife rescue should not be the last line of defense. It should be the backup, not the plan. So, a lot more respect and a huge support for rescuers who wake up before dawn and trying to dehydrate pup who are not hydrated and feeding them around the clock. That was a eternally grateful, like what I can say. So, like for a closing reflection, I can say flying foxes have survived in Australia for thousands of years. What they are facing now is not normal heat. It is sustained, repeating extremes. This story is about bats, but it also about forest, city, and people. It is about how tightly everything is connected. Next time you see a bat crossing the sky at dusk, remember that it is doing quiet work and keeps ecosystem alive. If you want cooler cities, a stronger forest, and a livable future, we need to protect the creatures already doing that work for free. Thank you for listening by English Podcast.